Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Monkey Patching Podcast, where we go bananas about all things lawsuits, hallucinations, and more. My name is Murillo, joined by my good friend Bart. Hey, Bart.
Hey, Milo.
How are you?
I'm doing very well.
Very well. New mic?
New mic, yeah. Wait, I'm gonna
New
show it.
setup. Yeah, check. Wow. Like, you're holding like a trophy. Like, you're very proud. Like, you're like...
Yeah, the stand looks a bit like a trophy, right?
It looks like it's like a podcast trophy. Why'd you get a new, like, you want to fill people in? Like, why'd you get a new mic?
I had a lot of issues with my last one. The sound was a bit distorted. I think it's actually it's not the mic itself, although it might be. My kid dropped it once. It might be. But it's like it's the amplifier. You need to have an amplifier in between your mic and your computer. And I think it's a problem with the amplifier. It is an amplifier that's not really meant for mics. It was meant for guitars.
Do you play the guitar as well, Bart? Oof, you diddle. Okay.
A few years back, I sometimes diddled the guitar.
Yeah? Do you have a favorite song that you like to play?
No, not really. I just try to play something. It's a slide guitar, actually.
Slide guitar?
Yeah, something that you you put it flat on your lap.
Oh, really?
It's also called a lap steel guitar.
Wow. Didn't know that. Okay, very cool. So next episode, you prepare the intro jingle?
I wouldn't want to do that to people.
Okay. It's like listeners drops, right? Like, alrighty. Cool. What do we have for this week? We have quite a lot of stuff. We have some tidbits at the end as well.
Yes, I'll kick him off.
Kick us off, Bart.
Atlassian is buying the browser company for $610 million to build an AI-first browser tailored for work. The plan centers on Dia, the startup's new AI browser, with Arc continuing but taking a backseat. If Atlassian nails this, fewer app switches and deeper Jira and Confluence integrations could make the browser feel like your workspace.
All right. So another browser company another move in the browser game.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. For a lot of money.
Yeah.
I have the feeling like since this whole AI race started, like no one is batting an eye at these numbers anymore, but it's still absurd.
Yeah, it really is. It's the browser company, which is actually from 2019.
I think the browser company, I think why it was most known to me is because of the Arc browser, which a bit predates the whole Gen AI stuff, right?
Yeah.
It was a bit of a browser that was a bit anti-clutter.
Yeah.
Trying to make you more, let's say, performant.
Yeah.
More efficient workflow in your browser.
It did get some...
in more recent years, they also introduced Dia, which was like an AI-powered, or is an AI-powered browser where you could basically interact via text with the tab that you have open.
Arc got some traction there, right, for a while. I remember it was very trendy, very hip.
I think in the tech community it was very hip, yeah. I'm not sure if outside of that people even knew it existed, but I think in the tech community it was very hip, yeah.
Yeah, indeed. Do you know what and also Dia, what does it stand for? Do you know?
No, that I don't know.
Did you know that Dia in Portuguese is day? True story.
Interesting.
Yeah. Indeed. A lot of money. Yeah, they say those.
What Atlassian will do with it, right? Because Atlassian, like, they're very well known for like their, let's say, developer work suite, developer workspace, kind of tools, Jira, Confluence, etc.
Yeah.
Bitbucket, also a big one. They now have a browser. It is, of course, interesting, like if you integrate all this very tightly within your browser, like your browser can really become your central workstation, knowing that a lot of like even development environments, like they run very well in the browser these days. So maybe Atlassian is basically trying to pull everything in and have like a central entry point, which also makes it a bit easy or more difficult for people to leave because like they have everything out of the box.
It does feel a bit out of nowhere, right, for Atlassian, in the sense that when you mention the tools that they have, everything feels like it kind of comes together, but then a browser feels a bit. I mean, I'm curious. I'm sure they have a strategy for this, but to me, it's not clear yet. It's not like a clear move, right?
To me, how I would see it, like they have these developer/project management tools, right? And by adding this browser, and you can run a lot on the browser these days. And if you integrate all this, like it becomes a bit like your operating system for your workspace.
Yeah, true.
And maybe that's a bit what they're trying to do. Really have this central entry point where it also becomes hard to leave, right? Because everything is there. It just makes sense to stay.
True. Yeah. For me, it makes sense, but I'm also wondering if there are other ways to do this, right? Like an extension in Chrome or doing this or doing that, right? Like you do need to.
Well, there probably are, but I can also imagine like their customers are typically the large enterprises of these worlds, right? Where it's always hard to do device management. Like, and if you have your whole development experience within your browser, it also becomes easier to, let's say, enforce enterprise controls, like more fine-grained controls of what can you access, what not, etc. These other things.
Yeah, that's true.
I think it's a hard thing to pull off, but I think it makes sense if you think in that direction.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I mean, I think I'm for sure. I mean, it's a lot of money, yeah. So for sure they had a.
I wonder what the migration path for existing Arc users will be. Like you're using your browser and suddenly, like you get a pop-up. This tab now turned into your Jira issues overview.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. It's like every Arc user is gonna be creating Jira tickets now, for their personal life. Yeah. Do you know the numbers? How many people were using Arc? Because the feeling I get is like it got a bit trendy, but then it also died down a bit.
I don't think it is a lot. And because in another context, I was looking at a benchmark the other day, and I don't remember that I even saw Arc in browser usage. But so it's probably not much. Like it's percentage points, probably.
Well, I think browser nowadays the browser game is very difficult. No, I think Firefox is. I think we talked about it maybe a couple of years ago, maybe already. That today's like 99%. No, not 99, but like high majority is Chrome, right? Do you have these numbers?
No, I don't.
Okay. So yeah, let's see. A lot of money again. I'm sure they have a plan. Curious how it's gonna unfold.
True. Yeah. Let's see.
Shall we move to our next topic?
Let's do that.
Let's do it. We have Mistral.
Case of big numbers.
Yes, well, we have a lot of big numbers today. So we have Mistral AI says that it has raised 1.7 billion, a huge shot of capital to accelerate its technological push. The announcement signals bigger ambitions for model development, compute, and go to market across Europe and beyond. For customers, expect faster releases and another strong alternative to the usual US-centric AI platforms. I think they had like the last. So Mistral AI, I think is the big EU player, right? When it comes to large language models. They have the LeChat, which is like the ChatGPT
alternative, right?
Alternative. They do release way more open source models, which is already very different from what OpenAI has been doing. And I think they had the last round of funding was last year, I want to say. And now they had another round of funding, and they had 1.7 billion there. And I think one of the big investors was ASML, right? And on the LinkedIn post, which I have on the screen, they also say here, industrial partnership with ASML to support the global semiconductor equipment manufacturer to keep pushing the frontier AI to solve the most critical and sophisticated technological challenges faced by highly complex industries. And I think with that, ASML also has a board seat.
Yeah, I think ASML actually becomes the top shareholder. They will hold around 11% of shares.
Indeed. We're surprised by this part.
Surprised is a lot to say. I was a bit neutral. The thing is interesting to see. I think it's interesting to see that, but I think what this round, this funding round shows is that big investors, I mean, there are big names here, are hopeful about Mistral AI. So I think that's maybe the way to phrase it. I think that's a positive thing. I think maybe was surprised about ASML leading the round. Not sure what that will mean towards the future. ASML is much closer to the chip production side, to the hardware side, right? They don't supply chips directly, of course, but they are much closer to the hardware. Maybe we do see some European alliance between AI, hardware, and software going forward. That's interesting to think about, I think. At the other side, I think in terms of benchmarks, in terms of community, Mistral is still very small when you compare this to the rest of the world, even with like a huge valuation, right? I think they're valued at 11.7 billion post money. But at the same time, they are doing some revenue. I think the latest reports coming out of this is that this year they will expect to do 100 million in revenue, which is of course peanuts versus their valuation, but it's still 100 million in revenue. And I think what they are doing, because there was also, and I think goes a bit behind it's not really visible to the community, but they are focusing very much on enterprises. They had an announcement last week that they are integrating very tightly with 20 very big enterprise sites. And that's maybe also the approach that they're taking, because of course they are the only serious European contender. So it makes a lot of sense to focus on European enterprises to really have a top-notch offering for them. And like this funding round and who's leading it, like maybe also shows that they do have traction in this space, right?
True. And like to say they're leading, it's also because it's 1.7 billion, and I'm looking here at this the ASML announcement. 1.3 billion was ASML, so it's like really like almost just ASML, right? Investing.
I think it's ASML. I think a lot of the ones that are mentioned as well, they were, I'm not sure if it's all, but a lot of them were existing investors that basically followed around, and also they increased their previous investment.
Indeed. Yeah, again, really big numbers. I think it's good that people are investing in the EU's AI.
Yeah, and I think it's good. I think it's a good strategy that they're following, like to really focus on this enterprise layer within the European Union, which is still very big, right? Like let's be honest, like it's in terms of global market, like the European Union is almost as big as the United States, right? In terms of people that are there, maybe it's a bit smaller in terms of total enterprise value, but like it's still very, very significant. And maybe it doesn't make sense to try to compete with the global market, but you should just compete within Europe.
I think also Europe has more, I mean, to share the European Union values, right? Like on the privacy and all these things, I think it's gives a differentiator, right? I think there's a lot of,
especially with current geopolitics.
Exactly. There's a lot of fears, maybe quote, I don't know if fears is the right word, right? But like, do we want to rely or over rely on OpenAIs and all, Anthropics of the world? So, and I think Mistral, I mean, at least from my perspective, right? You don't see as much controversy as you see for Anthropic. We're going to talk about Anthropic later. And also OpenAI, right, on a lot of these things. So maybe it's also because it's smaller. To be very honest, you don't hear as much in general, like the good and the bad. But I'm not sure if this is also the care, right, for human values and all these things. I don't know if it also permeates on their models. But I think it's good in any case. I think it's important.
What else do we have? We have here Alex Kantrovitz argues that generative AI now has 3 jobs: getting things done, developing thoughts, and companionship. He cites GPT-5's agentic bent, while deeper reasoning comes with cost trade-offs. For users, it's a reminder to pick tools by job: execution, exploration, or emotional support. What is this about, Marilla?
Yes, so it's an article that I see passing by. It resonated to me. There's also a bit of a controversial use. So what he's arguing in this article is that now it's been almost 3 years since ChatGPT came out, and the industry has a bit.
3 years.
Huh?
It's been.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, it's crazy. But now the industry is a bit converging on different uses of generative AI. And I think he mentions agent, which I'll put a bit of an asterisk, but agent to his, in his definition, is just to get stuff done. Then he mentions thought partner, which basically means chatting about things, discussing. When I first read thought partner, I thought of sometimes what I do, for example, I say, hey, I have this plan. Can you criticize my plan or ask me follow-up questions? And sometimes the questions are like, okay, I mean, a lot of times I'm writing a document, so I want to be thorough. Most of the times the questions are like, okay, I just forgot to type this. But sometimes every once in a while I was like, oh, actually, that's a good point. Maybe I should think it through, right? That's what I thought he meant. And it's kind of what he meant. But he's also talking about like reasoning models. So something that is really, it's not necessarily about the task, it's more about the output, right? And the reason why I said about an asterisk about agent and thought partner is because the thought partner, according to him, can also be agentic in the sense that it can also make tool calls for the web and like,
Okay.
reason and all these things. So I think the main difference
Thought
there,
partner becomes a bit like your deep research mode or something.
something like that. Yeah. But it's not just to get stuff done. And that's how he defines it, right? Like the thought partner is really like, what is the outcome here? It's more about the conversation, not about the outcome. There's a quote here, right? Like the agent is searching for efficiency and wants to move you on to the next thing. The thought partner is happy to dwell, right? And then actually admits here and make sure that you understand things. And then the third, well, maybe before we go to the third one, which is a bit more controversial, does this also mirrors how you use AI in your day-to-day?
That's a good question. I have a hard time putting this framework on how I use it, to be honest.
Yeah,
So I have
but that's because it doesn't fit, or?
I have a hard time fitting it. Yeah, like to me, like I have some automation tasks, and then I have I use it also quite a bit in like discovery/learning mode, like to understand like these new articles, to give me a summary of these articles, and to really drill down on articles, for example.
Yeah.
I do this when we prepare for the podcast. It really helps. I think that it would fit here, maybe already in thought partner, but to me is also like a bit to get things done. The thought partner, like I would fit a bit more the deep research stuff on there then, maybe.
Yeah, I see.
Where you have a bit more complex question, like I have this set of companies, do some research on these and these metrics, give me a report in this style, like maybe that's...
Yeah, it's a bit murky, right? Because even that, you could argue that you're just getting things done, right? Like
Yeah, it's to me it's a
you're
bit
delegating
murky,
to the, yeah,
and also
indeed.
like to me like I also do some AI assisted coding. That would probably be an agent then. I do some. There's also some creative parts, right? We've discussed music, we've discussed image, and like it's also have a hard time fitting it here. So I'm not sure. Like I wouldn't use this for my.
Indeed. I also don't. I read it. I thought some resonated. I guess I also I wasn't convinced that it encapsulated all the uses, and that there's a third category that I'm leaving for the last, which is companion. I think actually between the three, this is the most well defined. Let's say. And this is what he says also the most controversial. And he said perhaps the most popular. Maybe I haven't checked this, but
well, this is.
we also saw, I think last week, we were seeing like the uses of the Gen AI, and I think the third one was the
second one.
Second one
In usage just came from the Cloudflare AI Insights report. The second biggest AI crawler, I think, was Character AI.
Wow.
Character AI is basically like you can build your companion.
Yeah.
And
Also
apparently it is very, very big in China, and it's probably bigger here in Belgium or in Europe. It's probably bigger than we realize also, right? If you look at these numbers from Cloudflare.
Yeah. I'm also wondering how, I don't know if it's also something that behind the scenes people use it, but they don't advertise as much, right? Like,
exactly. Yeah, I agree. I understand what you mean. Yeah, like you're a bit hesitant to talk about this because it's still a little bit frowned upon. Like you're
I mean, it is also controversial, right?
like,
Maybe.
isn't this a bit weird? Like a AI
Yeah.
companion, like.
In this article, they also link to this post, I guess, which is like how to use people generative AI in 2025. Apparently, it's from Harvard, so I haven't checked this, but according to them, in 2025, the first thing is therapy and companionship.
Wow.
I guess, yeah,
It's crazy.
So yeah, so back to the article.
What is the top 3? Maybe it's an
Top
interesting
3 from this
usage.
article: therapy and companionship, organized life, find purpose.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Very linked, right?
Find purpose, yeah, indeed. Organized life, maybe that's more like the ad hoc things, right? Like
I'm surprised that generate code is like it's
Yeah.
only fifth. Like it shows how much in a bubble that we live, right?
Yeah, indeed. Like yeah, true. And hence learning, what you said here as well, number 4, which actually I think this makes a lot of sense. Even though I wonder the people that use it to enhance learning, how are they using this, right?
Yeah, you need to learn a bit how to learn with
Exactly.
these
It's a new skill, right? But it can be really
it's hard for me to explain how, because like I use this a lot in the car, like when I'm on hands-free, like the voice mode on ChatGPT, and like sometimes you hear maybe this is not really correct, and then you need to ask, please verify that by crawling relevant sources, and then it crawls relevant sources. But you need to know when to do this, right?
Yeah.
You know when you should question the results.
Yeah, that's true. I think, yeah, indeed, but it's kind of like, it's like you have a friend that he is very confident all the time, but sometimes he just spits shit. Like, and you have to be like, are you sure? Like.
Yeah.
But yeah, indeed. Back to the article. So he mentions here, most controversial, right? Maybe most popular is to use this as a friend or lover. And he also mentions a few stories, right? So I think not that long ago, there was OpenAI got actually sued because there was a teenager that took his own life, actually, after chatting with ChatGPT.
Sad story.
Yeah, indeed. Very sad. And apparently, like, through all the conversation, ChatGPT, again, it was the how do you say sycompathy? How do you say it again?
Fancy.
Sycophancy? Are you just reading the South Park episode title? Sycophancy, basically like the tendency for the model to agree, right, with user, basically, right? And apparently the teenager was suicidal, and he would confide a lot to ChatGPT, and then let's say it enforced or empowered, right? Even it asked like for tips on like, oh, should I do this? Should I do that? Would this work? And then ChatGPT was very like, yeah, maybe like instead of trying to be a bit more safe, right? So OpenAI did receive a lawsuit in the past. I think in the past we also discussed AI as a therapy, right? And I think back then also we had also I remember saying that it can help a lot of people because there's a bit of stigma around therapy, right? And I think having something very accessible, but at the same time, there are some cases that are very serious.
Slippery slope.
Exactly. Right. So when it's bad, it can be very bad. Right. And he also mentioned some other cases where it's not so disturbing. And apparently, AI robot dolls charm their way into nursing the elderly. And GPT powered robots, 7-year-olds, are taking over some work from caregivers. They lie to seniors to treat them like grandchildren. And I think this is in South Korea as well. So another use of Gen AI to simulate a companion, I guess. And this is for.
It's also a bit worrisome, right?
It is. It is a bit, I don't know. It's a bit Black Mirror-y, right? Yeah. So again,
like it's one thing to like get a dog at old age, like it's cuddle and something to take care of. It feels a bit weird to have something that tries to mimic a 7-year-old and says, "Grandma, can I get a kiss?"
Yeah, exactly. It's a
right?
bit.
I mean, not sure if that's a good thing we should be doing as a human race.
Yeah, like yeah, I don't know. I mean, I have the same impulse as you, but then at the same time, if it helps, if it's, like, is it just weirdness from me because I'm quote unquote old fashioned? I'm not sure, but I have the same.
But to me, the most worrying thing is the things like Generative AI, where you build like artificial friendships, artificial romance, and I think you hear a lot of sources already saying like the younger generation has a lot of trouble making valuable connections
Yeah.
in real life. This will not make it better. On the contrary, like you get these short-lived things where you get some validation, like, oh, there is someone that wants to interact with me, and
Yeah.
it becomes
I
easier
agree.
not even to think about the next step. Like, I actually need to go out and make actual friends anymore.
Yeah, I
I
agree.
don't think this is a good thing for our social life.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that like we're getting so comfortable as a species, like society, right? That if you just lean it too much, it's actually not beneficial for you, right? I think a
Exactly.
level of challenge and hardship is good in your life. And you also see, like, I think in Japan, they have, like, the loneliness is actually a big problem. Maybe, I mean, we saw that the other thing was from South Korea, right? But
But that's a bit what I mean. Like, if loneliness is a problem, this feels like,
it's a band-aid, right? Like, you're treating the symptom, not the disease.
yeah, but you start using this and maybe it indeed feels a little bit less lonely, but you treat the symptom and thus you don't even start think about more, like how do I make structural
Indeed,
changes.
indeed, indeed, indeed. I mean, I feel like, again, it's like a band-aid, right? Like, it
Yeah,
helps the problem for today, but the problem is still there,
exactly. Yeah.
right? And the problem is not going to go away. In fact, it makes it even worse. I think there's also the whole, if you create a companion that always agree with you, I think it's also easier to get to the extremism that we see in the world sometimes, right? Like, it's always
Good
like, yeah.
point. Yeah.
So I think, again, being challenged sometimes is good, right? So he also mentions this. I think, again, it's something that we don't cover as much, I feel. But apparently there's a big group of people. And one thing that I wanted to share as well, like he says, when you're building an AI product, part of the trouble is some people always fall in love with it. And I think he means fall in love in the very romantic sense, right? And he says, yes, there's even an erotic fan fiction about Clippy. And I just wanted to share that, like apparently there's Conquered by Clippy and an erotic short story in Goodreads. And then there's one review that is like, I'm only admitting to reading this because I'm behind on my reading goal. So yeah,
So yeah. Tomorrow
it could be
you're
worse.
creating a character AI account and you're creating a Clippy.
Yeah, exactly. It could always be worse. That's, I guess, that's what I wanted to say. Alrighty,
The Clippy band. Sorry. Let's go to the next one. What do we have
let's
here?
move on quickly. Simon, I don't know how to say his last name. Spati makes the case that relying on AI for core writing or coding dulls skills and produces bland work. He even turned off Grammarly and Copilot to regain focus, using AI only for quick autocomplete or diagrams. If you build or create, his advice is simple: use AI deliberately. Keep your mental muscles strong. I read this article as well. I think it's not very unlike other things that we have also seen. There's also research, right, about creative writing from MIT, I want to say.
And it's a bit of a, like the article, like it combines a lot of opinions of other people, right?
Yeah.
It's and also some talking about frameworks, like a bit, how can you think about where it can help, where it does not help, what is productive versus not productive. It's and a little bit tongue in cheek as well.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting discussion on like, what does it do if you rely too much on this? Like, does it only improve your productivity, or do you actually start losing skills? I think that's a bit the premise that is being created here.
Yeah, there's also some, he doesn't say technical debt, but he also says some things that makes me think of technical debt. There is the muscle part, which I think it's true nonetheless, but I think some of the arguments against the use of AI made me feel like he's saying like using AI and just like letting it rip it, like without supervision. And I think for a lot of the things, for example, one of the things he mentions is like architectural designs are big no-nos, which I think it's true if you're letting the AI have full agency, right? But I feel like if you have someone there like that is verifying, that has their opinion, that is there, like an expert, which again, is it Gen AI? I mean, maybe it's Gen AI assisted, maybe get some ideas, but I think there's a bit more nuance as well for some of these things, right? So yeah, he has some interesting diagrams here. Like one is he sources a lot from other like he sources a lot of quotes and images, right? And I think this one was also funny, like the illusion of productivity, of AI productivity, right? So as time goes over, you skyrocket and then you tweak and then you go back down, you have to restart and then you go and it goes a bit higher and then and then you go back down and you keep this pattern until it's good enough and actually you plateau. And yeah, again, the images has also like a before AI that was like semi-steadily going upwards, right? Again, not sure if I agree with all the things. I do think that the muscle part, I think, is the most relevant in my opinion, right? There's another part of like writing or not writing that he says like writing is also alike to thinking. So if you have people that are not writing, you're actually taking steps towards people that are not thinking.
Yeah. It's also slippery slope, right? Like I was actually thinking about this the other day, and you have this book called Thinking Fast and Slow or something.
Yeah, it's a popular one.
I'm not sure if the title exactly correct. And I was actually thinking about this that the concept in this book when it comes to my own use of Gen AI. And like the concept of the book is like you have two systems, right? Like two modes of operating. Like you have a system one where it's a bit instinctual, like very quick decisions, also very biased. Like you think you know very well, but it's very automated and sometimes you make mistakes. And system two is a very much deliberate, like it takes time and takes effort. And in real life, it's not one system or the other, it's a combination of these things. But I was thinking the other day, like my own usage on the Gen AI, for example, when it comes to learning, right? Like when it comes to learning a completely new domain, whether it be in tech or business or whatever, like it used to take a lot of time and effort to find targeted information and to study that information and to do something with it. And now you ask ChatGPT and you think, oh yeah, okay, now I know. And then you move on to the next thing. Like,
Yeah.
and you are very much more in this system one and you don't really train your system to, like where you're not really training like this deliberate system that makes your muscle better to then actually do instinctual stuff with it, right? Like it's
True.
much more like, and also when to make maybe the comparison there with coding, like when I use a new framework that I haven't used before and I use it now with Gen AI, I study it way less before actually implementing it than I used to do it, because I used to have to go to the website and look at the tutorial, see this is how you use it in these scenarios, and then like build a bit of an architecture in my brain. Like this is how you typically do this, and these are what best practices. And now I start with and use that framework, and then it does something for me, and then hopefully it's correct, and then I try to figure out along the way. But there's a completely different way of picking up new stuff, which I do kind of for myself worry a bit about. And I noticed it as well, like because you mentioned writing here, I noticed it in writing as well. So I have a harder time these days sitting still to write a large portion of text than I had before ChatGPT. Simply because you're so used to generate this text, it needs to have this content.
Yeah, interesting. I think for me, I relate to some of these things. I think, but I think before it was like I struggled. Like I have a hard time for some tasks, and I think again, I think I have some ADD traits, and I have a hard time sometimes just sitting my ass and just like, I'm gonna read this. I need to understand this. I need to understand that. And I feel like with AI or Gen AI, there are some shortcuts you can take now, right? And I think I still do the work to when I feel like I shouldn't be taking shortcuts, I still try to do the work, but I also notice that I'm way more impatient in a lot of ways, right? Like I'm doing this now, but I'm like, fuck, this is taking so long, you know?
Yeah.
Like I should be doing this, I should be doing that.
That's a bit what I mean with the writing stuff, right?
Yeah,
Like I'm no
indeed.
longer used to it, that writing stuff takes time.
But do you feel like you're maybe losing that skill? Or do you think it's more that you're impatient?
Maybe a bit of a combination, like maybe you become impatient because you're able to create stuff so quickly or get an answer so quickly with something like ChatGPT. And on the other side, like maybe losing not necessarily specific writing skill, but more like a deliberate thought process skill to really in depth, in a structured way, go to something, research something, and like build knowledge in that field.
Yeah, I think yes, but at the same time, I do. For example, I was studying. I had to study like a set of 8 documents, and in the documents they just said like, these are the documents, and they all had like different like they didn't give the context of what was the document about. So some documents were really well structured, some were not. But we also, when I was trying to read, I also saw that there was some disagreements. Let's say, so I was like, okay, maybe this is outdated, and I actually used Notebook LM, not to
A Google
replace.
product.
It's a Google product, yeah. So for people that don't know, like now it's a study companion. They got very popular because it would create podcasts of the source material that you put. So I used it first to like, okay, I wanted to listen to it first, like a bit of a discussion, because sometimes I think it's helpful still. I feel like nowadays, if I'm reading something, before I'll be like, every line I read, I need to understand it. Right? And sometimes I'll read a paragraph and then my mind is wandering and I'll go back to paragraph, read it again until, and nowadays I'm like, try to get like a skin through first, then try to dive deeper into each one of those. Right? And I think for that, like the Notebook LM actually helped me in the sense that I could listen to it and they would talk about some things. And then they also have a bit of a mind map that you can kind of click and like you would expand stuff. Then you also have a bit of a chat and always with the source, right? So you can click and zoom in the article. So I feel like in a way, like it didn't really replace the reading, but it guided a bit more, right? Like, okay, now you have this, now you have that. It just kind of gave me a bit of a structure. And I think sometimes, even in learning, like if you have research papers as well, some of the papers are really well written and some of the papers are really not. And it took me also some time, like in the beginning, I always thought it was my fault. But then I remember I read a paper, I was like, wow, this is like super well explained, right?
Yeah.
Like, and then sometimes like, okay, maybe it's not about maybe it's not entirely my fault, right? Maybe the way that the material is presented also makes a big impact.
Yeah. And that is also where Gen AI makes a big difference. Like even if a paper is written very well, but like it's a very specific domain that you don't have any knowledge of, like, but and use very technical jargon, then you can ask or ChatGPT or whatever, like, present this in a bit more layman term to me, or generate a concrete example for me that I can understand without having the background, like, and it will really translate it to something that is understandable for you. So, and fully agreed, like in that sense, like I use it a lot. I very much see the value, but I do
Yeah.
sometimes worry about like what with these more, should I not be doing more of these deliberative processes, and what if I don't do it for a long time?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, see, I share again, maybe not to the same degree, but I do share a bit the fear, quote unquote, right? But I'm also wondering, like my dad, when he was writing his thesis, he had to go to the library, pick up books, go to the table of contents, read the stuff, and then cite everything, right? And maybe when internet like Google came out, it was like, okay, I mean, he probably didn't know, but like imagine, right? Like people are like, but I think I'm losing the skill of like finding the right book and going through the, like,
That's
and reading
true.
the stuff. And maybe it's like, yeah, but maybe you're fine, bro. Like,
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
maybe like you're learning new skills, right? So again, I'm saying this as well, but I do relate to what you're saying. I mean, again, in GenAI is so broad. There's so many tasks, right? You can be generating music to generating images to listening to whatever, doing your research to writing. So I do think some of these things that we probably should still be doing, right? I also think that if you leave the AI to do some of these things is also probably not a good output, right? I mean, not good in the sense that one example they give here, for example, the cover letters. Nowadays, if you read cover letters, they're AI generated. You can definitely tell they're AI generated, right? And I think maybe in the beginning, people were like, cover letters, like, whoa, this is amazing. Like, you can read it, it makes sense. But like nowadays, like, it's like, you get a bit saturated, right?
Yeah,
Like the
yeah.
same thing with like AI generated content on YouTube or whatever, right?
And it's growing very quickly. Yeah, the amount
Yeah,
that is out
because
there.
it's so easy. It's so easy to do, right? So, I mean, even a few
You're
times I
still
think you
real,
mentioned,
right?
sorry?
You're still real, right?
Hey, am I? No,
Maybe
he
you're my
also
character AI.
yeah, it's all simulation, Bart. They also mentions like soulless, right? And I think that's a bit the vibe that you get, right? You just get a bit like things like not really, I don't know. It's like what's the like you get a bit, I don't know. There's no substance to it, right?
And I think like maybe that's a bit the for me a bit the summary of all of this is like all of these tools, they are super valuable. I think they, for me personally, like they accelerate what I do a lot, but you need to remain skeptical about like what do you actually achieve with it? Like, is it good to use it in any domain? Like, are there reasons to say now I need to slow down a bit and really go in depth on it instead of having a very quick answer and then going to the next thing? And you can still use like AI
Yeah.
tools to go in depth, right? But I think it needs you need to switch a bit your own mind state to do that.
I
Sometimes.
think it maybe links a bit to what we were saying before. I think is like you need to be consciously choosing maybe the harder path and not as
Yeah,
efficient
exactly.
path, right? Because you know that there are benefits to it,
It's a nice
right?
way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the way I like to, and I mean, maybe I'm taking being a bit too philosophical here, but I think in my life, I think in general, I think the way I put it is to be intentional, right? Like you're doing things because, okay, this I'm just trying to get it done, so this is fine. This is something that I actually want to learn, so I need to do the work, right? And whatever you're doing, just make sure you know why you're doing these things. And you're not just leaning on the easy path always,
Yeah.
right? I just wanted to do a quick shout out here. So he's actually asking, will it replace X? And one is data engineers, and he says probably not. Nice comparison by Medioaza.
Yeah, we had him on our previous podcast. We had him on as a
Exactly.
guest, right?
We should have him because he's moving back to Belgium. And we should have him on this one. A friend of ours. So he says nice comparison by Medi. Did the music record replace musicians 100 years ago? Nope, it just changed them in the industry. Did cloud and computing take all IT jobs? No, it just changed the industry and our jobs. Same here. It would change our industry and the job, but we won't disappear. So I also agree with this statement from Eddie, right? I think it would change a lot of stuff, but I don't think it will replace necessarily.
I don't think it will replace software engineers. That I agree. Maybe
I
it
don't
will
think
replace subsets in that
maybe,
or change them.
yeah, indeed. But I also think that if you're not using, then you should definitely be using these things, right?
Let's move on to the next one.
Let's do it.
Anthropic agreed to a $1.5 billion settlement to resolve claims it trained on hundreds of thousands of copyrighted books. The deal packs payouts around $3,000 per book and requires deleting the pirate datasets pending court approval. For builders, the signal is loud. Pay for quality data or risk eye-watering legal bills later.
Another big number.
Big number, and we actually reported on this lawsuit. I want to say 3-ish weeks ago. And I'm very much paraphrasing here, where I understand that the judge basically deemed Anthropic training on books fair use. So it's okay to train on any book as long as you have acquired this book through legal means. In other
So
words, you bought it.
yeah, so it's kind of like anthropomorphizing again a bit, right? Like it's like you bought the books, you read all of them. If you're writing a text that combines all these things that you read, it's fine.
Well, if you train your model on this, then it's fine. That's what we have.
No, yeah. But like if I'm
lawsuit.
if I was a person, it's like I bought all these books, I read them, I read a text
And
that takes ideas from all.
you write a thesis based on this foundation of knowledge that you built through these books.
Exactly. Then
Yeah,
that's a bit
that's
the vibe, right?
The problem is, of course, that Anthropic did not buy the books. They used zlib and libgen, two very notorious illegal book websites, libraries, very big ones. And that is why they now reach a settlement with a set of authors where they have to pay $3,000 per book. And I assume that these are books from the authors that are in the lawsuit, which is probably a very big group.
Yeah, I wonder how they know about all these books. Is it because they just took every book from LibGen or whatever?
Well, that's what they did. Huh? That's what the lawsuit says. Yeah.
Yeah, so just listed every book that is available there, and they said 3,000 per book.
I don't know how they came to this number, so that's a good point. No, I would assume, but I don't know, but I would assume that it's all the authors that started the lawsuit. I assume it's a group of authors or a group of publishing houses or something like that. So I assume it's divided over those the books that
Yeah,
are
I
linked together.
see. I see.
But I'm not 100% sure, to be honest.
And actually, they settled, right? So it wasn't in court, right? But they settled for 1.5 billion. And I think what they said, what I saw somewhere, that they were afraid, like they wanted to, no, not afraid of, but like that they didn't want to go to court and maybe it would be higher and whatever, like the same story. I also saw that Anthropic had funding round before. A fast-growing AI startup announced earlier this week that it had just raised an additional 13 billion in a new venture capital funding to deal with development 183 billion. So I'm not sure if also them raising this money was also to settle on this.
Maybe, yeah, maybe.
Right.
True.
And what are the consequences for this? Because I was seeing here, so yeah, this is not a legal precedent because they settled, right? But this will also, I mean, this also sets a precedent, right? Maybe not a legal one, but I think if something like this happens in the future, people will definitely look at this settlement and say, this is how much money I'm going to be asking for.
Well,
There's
I
definitely
think it's
consequences,
very
right?
exemplary, and I think I'll let you introduce the next topic. Is I don't think the timing is a coincidence.
So maybe let's just get to it. We have two authors sued Apple, alleging the company trained its AI on pirated books to build its open ELM models. The complaint says Apple has not attempted to pay these authors for their contributions to this potentially lucrative venture. For the broader AI industry, it's another reminder. Data provenance and licensing are becoming legal must-haves. So again, one settlement comes, another lawsuit gets filed right now towards Apple.
Yeah, and this basically comes a few weeks after the ruling from the Anthropic case that you are not allowed to use basically pirated books. You need to buy the books before you can train on them. And what do we have a few weeks later?
Yeah.
A lawsuit where Apple gets sued over pirated books that they apparently used to train one of their models, OpenELM model. Yeah, it's interesting to see. I don't. It's the first one we see after the sort of precedent that is being set by you're not allowed. It's fair use, but you need to buy them. I think we will see much more of these lawsuits coming in.
Yeah, I think so too. And I'm also wondering if you're one of the big players, maybe you can take the hit. But if you're not one of the big players,
That's a very good point.
right? And I think
It's a very good point that you're making. We were discussing Mistral earlier.
Yeah.
Mistral is valued at what was it, 11.7 post money.
I think so.
I mean, it's a lot of money. Yeah, I mean, you
It's a
can't
lot.
really settle at 1.45, 1.5.
Indeed. So yeah, there. I mean, I don't know if there was a strategic thing, but I think there is also implications for. Yeah, like maybe you're reading out.
To me, this is a bit like I think there is a very big chance that all the big players use this.
I think so too.
It's super accessible. Like you can just store on the whole library. Like it's. I doubt that anyone did not do this.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the
Especially if we're
things,
looking a year ago, well, it was definitely free for all.
exactly. I mean, if you see the things, I mean, OpenAI was a big case for a lot of stuff. Even the image generation, right? It really doesn't seem like they cared at all. They just like took everything they could get and just powered the new models.
Exactly.
And maybe now also the other thing is their models are already trained on this, so they also use even if they don't have the data, they don't use the data anymore. They still can use their models to train other models or fine tune their models to other things, right? So in a lot of ways, like the abuse, quote unquote, that they done can still be reused for other downstream models, right? Like benefit in other ways. It's not like if Anthropic trains a new model, they're not going to start from scratch.
Probably not.
Right. So yeah, Apple now sued.
And then also like it's probably because now the settlement is 1.5 billion for Anthropic, right? It's $3,000 per book. I mean, the books don't cost that much, right?
Yeah,
And you only need to buy them once. That's what we get from the ruling at this point, right?
yeah, indeed. But that's what I'm also wondering. Like 3,000, it seems like a lot. Like for
It seems
each
like
book.
a lot, and that's also why I think it's a small subset of publisher or authors that are currently in the lawsuit.
True. But yeah, but
Because
that's
the actual the libgen library is huge, and it's encompasses a lot of different types of texts. It's novels, it's scientific texts, it's tons of different languages. It's I would assume that it's less per book if you would divide over everything.
yeah. No, I would also imagine that's why I was also a bit like how many. Yeah, that's why I also was a bit surprised. So what's next?
Microsoft. Because Microsoft warned Azure customers about high latency after multiple subsea cables were cut in the Red Sea. Quote, undersea fiber cuts can take time to repair, the company noted as engineers rerouted traffic to alternative paths. If your apps cross Europe, Asia, or the Gulf, build in Slack and expect occasional real-world infrastructure hiccups. Yeah, it's a worrisome news, right? Geopolitical tensions that we see. I think also the ability that different groups have to do this kind of damage, which has also evolved over time. I think this would have been much harder to do 15 years ago, or there would be less parties that would be able to do this, to basically damage these cables at the bottom of the sea. But you see that these geopolitical tensions, they start having an effect on the World Wide Web. And I think it makes me worry a bit, like how big can we expect the internet to be? Like if this continues and if this grows, like will we only have access to a part of the internet, right? And also,
Yeah,
that's maybe a far-fetched concern, but also like what does it mean for like if you really need to have something that is fail-proof. Like what you typically do is like if you're I don't know, if you're a bank, you have maybe if you're a local data center, you have a multi-cloud setup. You have different geographical zones, but maybe now you also need to have different network routes to connect to all those things. Like it's a big extra worry if these things like grow in occurrence, right?
yeah, indeed. It's a bit, yeah, indeed. Like I said, I think it's a bit worrisome, right?
It's a bit worrisome, like because it's to me like this is like the internet is a bit of a, should I put this, maybe a bit of a basic necessity
Yeah,
for the human race as a whole at this
yeah. Feels
point.
like a commodity, right?
It's become a commodity, yeah. But this puts it a bit this puts it a bit at attention, right? Like we hope that it will remain a commodity.
Yeah, indeed. I think there's a lot of the time is also there's a lot of tensions in the world, right? And I think when you see these things as well, it becomes very real, I guess. Like it becomes very close to home, right? I think sometimes it feels like it's very far.
And I think you had this to some extent as well. Like you have regimes that really close off their country's internet, right? Like if you look at North Korea, but it's a bit more isolated, right? Like this is really disruptive for global communications across the World Wide Web.
Yeah. Indeed.
So yeah, let's hope we don't see this too often.
Let's hope it's the first and last time that we have some articles like this. And next up, what do we have? We have OpenAI. OpenAI says hallucinations persist because conventional benchmarks reward confident guesses instead of admitting uncertainty. They argue evaluations should penalize wrong but confident answers and sometimes credit quote unquote, I don't know responses. For users, that means more calibrated models that hedge less often and bluff a lot less when stakes are high. Did you get a chance to look at this article, Bart?
I browsed through it, yeah.
I browsed through it as well. What caught my attention the most was the conclusions at the very bottom. So maybe hallucination, in case for the people that are not familiar, the way I would describe it is when models, they say something that is completely nonsense, non-factual, is just wrong, but they sound very convincing, right? They sound very confident.
And what they're posing here is that they're saying that this is because the benchmarks that they train and test against basically is that they penalize saying, I'm not sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And
saying,
also,
I'm not sure is
it's a bad
or
answer.
Is that sounding very confident?
Exactly. I think also in the way that these models are trained, right, with the human reinforcement, right, that even in that period as well, people reward very confident, right? And I think
maybe there's also this bias because it's
I think so.
Human reinforcement.
I would guess yes. I think it's the same. I mean, again, I'm working in consultancy now, right? And I do also know the power of confidence.
You
right?
need to sound confident.
You need to sound confident, right? Even when you're kind of not, right? Or like when you, I don't know. Like I know it's not perceived well to not have an opinion as well, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So
That's
it's
a good
like
point.
having an opinion, being confident, being able to back it up. I think it goes a long way, and so I think there's also something human there. So I also imagine that in the human reinforcement learning, that was also played a role. So I also think that's why models they were tuned to be very confident. I think so. Models, they are predicting the next token, right? The next word, and so I think that's the main takeaway, right? They say the claim is that hallucinations are inevitable, and actually they say they disagree. They say actually they're not, because language models can abstain when uncertain. Which, I mean, maybe there will still be some hallucination, right?
Yeah, because that's a strong finding, right? Like they're saying that hallucinations are not inevitable because the model can abstain when uncertain, but it also assumes that there is this good estimation, like when is this model uncertain?
Exactly. And I think this also links a bit to another finding that I thought it was pretty interesting, that avoiding hallucinations requires a degree of intelligence which is exclusively achievable with larger models. And actually say, not necessarily. It can be easier for smaller models to not hallucinate, to basically abstain, right? So the example they give is like if you have a Maori question, a small model that doesn't have anything on Maori, they'll just say, I don't know. But a model that has a bit of information, they'll just make it up because they know some of it, you know? So I also thought it was quite interesting. And yeah, I think that, like you mentioned, like other things about the measuring hallucinations. So I thought it was an interesting article. I also think that today that's the main, for people using AI, I think that's the main caveat, right? You always need to be a bit like, maybe they don't know. They're saying a lot of stuff. They're always going to give you something. If you say, do this, they're always going to do, even if they have no context on how to do, they'll just get something, which sometimes is good. Like if you have writer's block or something, you just want to get something on the paper, maybe that's good. But for a lot of the things, it's actually pretty bad, right? Like maybe if you're asking the model to come up with a technical solution of something that makes no sense and it's impossible, because it doesn't, it refrains itself from saying I don't know, it will come up with an answer, but the answer will be nonsense, right?
And it will be very sycophant.
Exactly.
That's a great question. You're the man.
Yeah, it's like, whoa. Yeah, exactly. So I think that's one of the main, I mean, for people that actually use this quite a bit, right? That's like for learning or for any other case, I think that's the main thing. Like you need to always be like you mentioned, you're driving, and it says, this and this and this, like, okay, give me sources. Like you have to have that muscle, right? And I think if they could improve this in future models, I think it would be a huge step forward, right? To just ask follow-up questions instead of just giving answers.
they improved a lot with ChatGPT 5. This
Oh
is
yeah. Okay.
my personal experience with ChatGPT 5.
Yeah.
And but also you hear it a lot in the community. GPT-5 made a big step when it comes to avoiding hallucination. It still hallucinates sometimes. You also have these two different, you have this instant response and the thinking response. And the thinking response is also very good at this. It tries
Huh.
to
Okay.
typically like find online resources to back up a statement.
Okay. Cool. And then do you encounter more in ChatGPT 5 the moment where it says I don't know, or not as much?
No, I can't really say that now. No, I can't really say that I've noticed it.
Yeah. But I do think improving this would drastically improve the experience people have with the large language models today.
Definitely. Yeah. And a very important problem to solve.
Fully agree. Alrighty. I think
That
that's it
is,
for our
that's it for today.
That's it for today, indeed. Oh, well, that's it for today with an asterisk, huh? We have some tidbits.
Let me just quickly go over them. I think one interesting one is that AMD claimed that that ARM, the ARM architecture, which is, for example, used by Apple's CPUs, it doesn't offer any efficiency advantage over x86. Six are the typical CPUs that we architecture on CPUs that we have used for a very long time on almost all devices until Apple switched to ARM. The moment that Apple switched to the M1 on the laptops, like people suddenly had a huge amount of battery, right? Battery life. Like it switched from 2 hours to 8 hours, something like that. That's a bit the feeling I had when I look back. And I think everybody was talking back then, and to me, that was still my belief as well. Like the main thing that made this is that ARM is just way more power efficient. And apparently it's just a combination of things where Apple optimized a lot of things on their OS to be power efficient. Also, the way that they integrated things on their circuits made that it's very power efficient. AMD is saying, and apparently it's also something that is like quite well known under experts, that x86 is as power efficient if you want it to be. And I think it's an interesting thing because I honestly didn't know. I honestly thought that the big change in battery life when it comes to especially Apple laptops was the switch to ARM.
Which would make sense, right? Like they switch to M1 and then the battery goes up. I think
Exactly,
it's but it's a good example of correlation, not causation, right? And
exactly.
is there like was it more a marketing thing then that they switched chips, or are there other benefits if it's not power?
Good question. Definitely not the person to ask in-depth questions on this.
We'll look for. If anyone listening that knows the answer, hit us up. Let's have a chat.
The other one is something from the UC Santa Cruz news. Thought an interesting article that I spotted. I think on Hacker News, it's that Wi-Fi signals can measure heart rates, and you don't need any wearables. And this is just cool, right? Like it's probably far away from being practical. But apparently, like you can have your Wi-Fi sensor, like your Wi-Fi sensor sends out very frequent signals, and what they do is that they record what comes back from these signals, basically quote unquote the echo. And from these patterns, they can, when they remove all the noise, they have a very accurate estimation reading on your actual heart rate. But of course, there are limitations, like you need to sit quite still, you need to be the only person in the room. But I mean, this is just cool, right?
Yeah, it's cool. It's pretty. I actually saw a while ago that you could use, what was it? You could use Wi-Fi signals to kind of see through walls, and like you could kind of, I don't know. The use case that I remember is like if there's an elderly person in the house and they fall, you could actually see that with Wi-Fi, and I was like, that's pretty cool.
Became a bit X-ray vision, right? Like you can see through.
Yeah, I was like, that's. I mean,
worrisome as well, but
a bit worrisome. But I was like, that's cool still.
yeah,
that was actually some years ago, I feel. So
that's true. Yeah.
Again, I do feel like for older people living by themselves, I think it's definitely a use case. So one of my neighbors is an older woman as well. So.
And you now have your Wi-Fi sensor aimed at the wall. at the shared wall.
Just like, yeah, we all know that my
Continuously
wife.
monitoring to make sure that she definitely doesn't
Every
fall.
day, yeah. But no, we all know that my Wi-Fi is not the best part. So, anyways, what is the last one? What's this? Who's the author of this?
Yeah,
What's
it's a very
this?
small tidbit article that I posted myself on my blog.
Wow, Bart Space. Ah, that's you, Bart Space.
A bit of a thought experiment.
Nice spaceship here, huh? That you.
A spaceship, yeah, so that flows over across the screen of my blog. But
People need
it
to check
actually
it
came
out.
from last week. We were discussing the Bear blog switch from their MIT license to Elastic license to from
Yes.
open source to source available.
Yes.
And I was thinking, like, and again, it's a bit of a thought experiment. Like, don't you need a different way to look at this? Like, Cloudflare is looking at like blocking crawlers. Like, could like large platforms like GitHub not do this? Like, even like frustrations like my code is being used to train a model that can just make a copycat of my code, right? And I think at least you should be able to say, I want to block crawlers from using my code at GitHub.
Yeah.
So and probably like the resulting model, if it doesn't have access to your code, can still create copycats, but at least it was not trained on my own code, right? Like it's a bit of a principle thing. Maybe it doesn't really make change in the bucket, but if I have a very popular repo or I'm really doing some novel stuff, maybe I say it's okay to crawl my repo, but just pay me, right? Pay me or get the fork out, right?
So it's the MIT PMO GTFO license.
Yeah, MIT pay me or get the fork out, and I think GitHub should adopt this. I think that the very difficult thing, of course, is like how do you block crawlers, right? And how do you block crawlers from correct derivatives from your code? Like it's a very complex thing to achieve. But I think like with players like Cloudflare really going the next mile on this, like this is a realistic future where you should have the option to block crawlers or get paid for it.
True.
Thanks for the upvote. I just saw you clicking.
Yeah. No, it's a nice. Well, I just got the TLDR, let's say, but it's an interesting concept. It's a nice idea. This doesn't exist then. It's not something you saw somewhere. You were just saying like, why don't we have this for code?
Yeah, why don't we have this?
Yeah, it's true. It's
very
true.
The bear block discussion that made me think about this.
So and I agree that it's fundamentally the same as like books, or it's similar. It's related to people using open source projects to make money. But why do you think? I don't know if anyone thought about it before, right? If they have, we haven't heard about it. Why do you think that is? What do you think is there something different about code that people just expect it to be taken, pulled, and copy pasted? Or do you?
I think with code, if you make the comparison with a book, I think like if I've built something, I built an open source product and I'm hosting my own service on that. I think Bearblog is a good example. They build a blogging platform and they're hosting it and they get some revenue from that. They're very passionate and they build something. The problem with code is that it's with code and especially with GenAI now, it's very easy to create a copycat of that, even if it's just source available, because then you say to the GenAI, crawl to this repo, make sure that it's different enough so that people don't see that there's a direct link. Like no line can be different, it can be the same. So it's very easy to make a copycat and get more or less like a similar type of SaaS, maybe with your own a bit like UI UX is a bit different. Maybe if you have your own niche that you're focusing on, but it's very easy to make a clone and profit off of that. And I think with a book, it's way harder because it's like it needs to be like, even though you maybe train on the content of an existing book, but like to be successful in a book, like you need to have like a substantially different book. Like I'm not gonna just make a clone of the Lord of the Rings, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's probably not gonna be very popular and probably not gonna profit off of that. So I think there is this difference in like, don't just take my work that I work so hard on and take away my profits. That's a bit the
true.
Still one. The combination of those things.
I feel like when you pose the question and you suggest the new license, let's say, I'm like, yeah, of course we should have this. I'm wondering why I hadn't thought about it before, or why I haven't heard about it before.
I think the difficult thing of this is like having a license there is easy, right? But enforcing it is super hard.
Yeah. I mean,
I think that only a few players like Cloudflare can maybe achieve this.
Cloudflare, but for coders, you're thinking for GitHub, right?
Well, yeah, but I mean, like understanding like this internet activity is actually a crawling bot from one of the big AI operators. I think that just understanding that is super hard because like there's a lot of abuse, right? Like it's
I see what you're saying. Even if GitHub wanted to do it, I mean, you can put the thing there, and maybe GitHub will respect it to not train Copilot there. But how would Anthropic or anyone, like, they can just fork the code and just
need to hope that they abide by these rules, right? And maybe then GitHub is a big enough player again to have some bargaining space with these operators, right?
Could they also enforce this on OpenAI or Anthropic or?
Well, GitHub is Microsoft. Microsoft has a very big stake in OpenAI, so maybe they can do it on OpenAI.
Maybe they can. That's true. All right, cool. Actually, this is a very good idea, Bart. I think I hope this gets to the right ears. I think this is it would be nice to see. It would be nice to see this going forward. I think this is something that we're missing indeed. Cool. And this is Bart's .space for people that want to check it out. Interesting read. Thanks for sharing, Bart.
You're welcome. That was it for today already.
That was it. I don't know. Do you feel like we had a lot of topics, but we got through them. Cool. And anything else you want to say? Any parting words? Any inspiring thoughts?
Go hard or go home.
Wow. Okay. No context, just that.
The best without context.
Okay. Cool. No questions. Bart, thank you.
Thank you, Milo.
Thanks everyone for listening. As always, if you enjoy, feel free to tell a friend, leave a review, hit us up if you have any feedback, anything.
Just to specify a little bit, leave a 5-star review.
Leave a 5-star. And if you would like to join us as well, hit us up as well. If you have any feedback, anything, happy to have a chat. Thanks, Bart. See you next week.
See you next week.
Ciao.
Ciao.